call the November 9th meeting of the County Council to order, and we'll begin by sharing in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda is the ARP Ordinance. And I guess a little bit of explanation is involved here, and then maybe some explanation as to why that is the situation. Council members, we have been to this point led to believe that we needed to vote on the existing ordinance. But now, based on legal representation, we do not vote on the ordinance itself. We vote on funding only. So that's a change in process. I guess my first concern is, how did we get this far down the road without being aware of how that needs to happen? But we have Attorney Boxberger and Attorney Shipman here to answer our questions about the ordinance itself, as we requested in last month's meeting. While we work on our questions, would you like to give us a summary of how it's supposed to be?
And I can't speak to what has happened, what hasn't happened.
Yes.
The first thing was then done with the establishment account, which was done a year ago, which was done. The next step is that county commissioners create a plan for how they would like to spend ARPA, which they have done. The final step in that is that council, as you always do, would need to appropriate the funds from that plan. So I think what you were saying is that the council isn't necessarily involved in the plan of how the funds will be spent, but you control the purse strings, as you always do, so you would have to appropriate funds necessary to effectuate. So those are the final step, I think, for today, to consider the appropriation funds.
And in fact, we can appropriate funds for each individual item or for the entire plan, or what are our options here?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to fund the plan, obviously. So if you choose partial fund the plan, you can do that. That would probably send the commissioners back to the drawing board to modify their plan, try to get it appropriated. Only deny the entire appropriation.
So when we're given the, I don't even know now if we're going to be given the ordinance to read. Are we going to be given the ordinance to read so we know what's in the ordinance?
We have it.
Okay, I couldn't find it. So we can vote on, if they give us an ordinance and everything's included, we just vote yes or no to that whole ordinance, or did you just say we can pick out the item?
Well, I mean, I think if you were going to appropriate funds separately, you should probably have a separate appropriation. So, if you, and we prepared a sample ordinance, so I'm not sure what the final version, we weren't involved in that, the final appropriation ordinance that you received, so I don't really know what's in it or what's not. But yeah, I mean, if you have an ordinance, you would need to redraft your appropriation.
Just
I provided it to have what you want to appropriate, especially redlining.
Well, I guess my question is more, if we have one ordinance containing 4 points, we can't pick and choose those points. We're voting for the entire ordinance at that point.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
You should draft the ordinance in a way that has a final determination.
Yeah, Joan, they have already pass the ordinance.
Yeah, I
But we-
know.
But we can appropriate what we desire in the timely manner that we desire to appropriate.
Yeah, I think maybe we're.
I guess what I'm trying to just explain is the funds in that ordinance, we're voting as a whole, or we can split it up.
We split it up.
Okay.
We desire to. We could, if there was a motion to vote as a whole, we would vote on that.
Okay.
If there's a desire to split it up, we would vote on that.
I think we got mixed up in the verbiage there. You're saying ordinance, we're talking about the commission plan.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
And I think one of the concerns that we have is that this is a procedural change. I'm sure it's the correct procedure, but it's not what we were led to believe was going to happen, we needed to do. Am I accurate that we had the understanding that we needed to pass the ordinance
Yeah.
as they had
That's
passed?
the way I understood it. Yeah.
Me too.
Well,
So-
that's not the case. So,
So the next two things on the agenda is that we're just gonna vote on whether to appropriate that money for those, for the surf broadband and for the Blue Lake. Is that what we'll do next then?
The Blue Lake, you guys have already said that you were.
We've already said, yeah, okay.
So we've got the form for that, and I do have another one for surf as well.
Okay. So that's what we'll do next is say whether we'll appropriate the money.
we can do that. We can
Or-
table because of the new information.
The mechanics of it, the ARPA funds deposited into the general fund and then we can disperse it from there? Or do we do,
It has its own fund,
it has its own fund?
yeah, that was created back, over a year ago when we first received the,
It was required by statute that funds need to be created whenever it's created. Yeah. Statute specifically requires.
Yeah,
We
and that
can
was
use
done when
money.
the first payment came.
And we can use the money out of there for any project we want, or does it have to be just certain projects?
My understanding, and you can correct me, is that if we do not want to fund a particular project, we make that decision. And then we ask the commissioners to recreate the plan or that portion of the plan. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Well, they would recreate the ordinance, because we would we pass the ordinance with an exception of a particular point, or would we refuse to fund a particular point and send it back to the commissioners for a new ordinance?
It'd be the latter. The ordinance and the plan, they created, the commissioners created the plan and said, this is how we want to spend our funds. They passed that. You have to fund it.
Okay,
you
so if
either
we
fund or
don't,
not fund the plan.
yeah, so if there's any part of this document that we don't fund, then the entire document, this resolution 2022-10 goes back to the commissioners to be put back together and represented to us.
Well, it's a complication.
Easier way to do it, and this is the way, first of all, Tim, I have no idea where you guys got information.
I understand.
By all means, ask me these questions, because I could have told you guys that that's not the way it works. But the way that I was asked to do it is to draft two separate for Blue Lake and Surf. I think you guys passed Blue Lake, the Surf one is in your packet, that's the better way to do it. Let's do it one at a time, so that the ones you guys are comfortable with, that they have put in their plan, you can approve. The ones that are not, either die for lack of a second or for the votes, or just never get put on your agenda. And then at that point, you guys have to work out an alternative plan for those funds that you don't appropriate, basically. And if you can't ever figure it out, the federal government gets the money back, basically.
So then why do we have an ordinance that's encompassing everything in one?
I think Andy can put that together for you guys just as a sample to use. I didn't do that. I'm not sure how or what. I'm not even sure how they got invited here. So not that, I mean, Andy and I work together all the time, it's fine. But somehow they got asked to do that. That's why you have that. It didn't come to me.
See, and what
And
we
they
had,
just did it as a courtesy to Tim or whoever asked to come.
what what we actually have is the ordinance that was passed before us. We don't have the sample in our packet. We have the actual ordinance. And then we have two appropriation options.
The ARP plan,
Yes, the ARP plan ordinance.
and that's already been approved, good, don't approve that.
Right.
That's already been approved by committee.
So that's what they have created as a plan. And we can either approve the entire plan or we can approve each item piecemeal.
And I think if instead of you guys approve the ordinance resolution to the
Yes.
Blue Lake, we've already done one of them.
And we've done actually 3 of them. We previously approved the radio systems and the consultant fees. So it seems that the logical thing would be to take them one at a time.
Well, and can I ask a question? I'm going to use SURF as the example. Here we have our information, but it just says we're going to allot the $1.7 million. So we don't get to see the finalization of the plan.
That's commissioner's responsibility. We're just funding it.
But I guess I don't see how we can fund something when we don't know the interior of it. I don't know how you would pass something like that without knowing, is there, who's gonna monitor to make sure it's done? Is it given in one lump? What happens if it's not completed? I don't know how I can say yes to this when I know nothing. All I'm saying is, yeah, I'll give you 1.7 million. That's
All the things.
And the
that you
same
just
thing
listed
with-
are roles of the county commissioner.
yeah.
It's the same thing, John, when Mark came to us and asked us for all that money for the improvements to the courthouse, the concrete and everything around it. We approved,
But he told us what he was doing and had
Right, but-
everything.
but we didn't take the role in making sure that it all got done or how it was done. That was the commissioners. So
Okay.
essentially that falls back to the day-to-day operations and that's their
But
responsibility.
this doesn't say what they're doing.
Right. You're right. So we don't know that.
It just says we're giving them 1.7 million. That's what my problem is. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for our attorneys?
And I think Matt makes a fair point. This has been a little bit confusing about doing what. I think maybe my understanding is I've done a little bit of work with commissioners in the past and they asked me to be here and help out with this process. So I think that's, in my view, that's who I'm here for. That's who my client would be. I mean, I've never worked with the council before and I'm happy to share my thoughts. That's kind of my role here, I think. Why I am here. I appreciate that. That's my narrow scope of, I'm not here providing the council advice on what to do. The commissioners ask me to help provide some clarity on their behalf. That's my role.
I mean, you've cleared up a lot today, this morning for me, because I was in a whirlwind trying to figure out what we need to do, what we're not supposed to do. This is right, that's right. So, thank you. Now I know we can do each individual one to okay if we want to. So I thank you for clearing that up.
And we have 3 sample ordinances that are in our packet for appropriation funds. One is appropriate the entire plan. One is the appropriation for the already approved Blue Lake project. And the third is the 1.7 million for SURF. It is our right to fund or not fund any project. If we refuse to fund a project, then we work out with the commissioners what we would like to see changed in that. Is that correct? Matt, that's,
They have to approve the revised plan, and then you guys have the checks and balances, you say your name, that's right.
all right.
I'll make a motion that we fund the Blue Lake project.
Second that motion.
Is there a title to it?
That's just the ARPA local fiscal recovery fund appropriation.
For the Blue Lake project. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Thought we already approved this.
We
We approved the
spending
project,
it.
but we did not appropriate the funds. No more discussion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. And it is 3-3. The motion does not pass. Does anyone desire to bring forth a motion on the other two proposals of funding?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we send the plan back to the commissioners. At that time, the commissioners can bring it to us one project at a time.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now, attorneys. Well, I guess I would like more information. Can it be done that way?
You can reject, basically you're rejecting the entire funding mechanism, the sample that and then.
Oh, but Blue Lake.
No,
Well,
we just rejected Blue Lake.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I got it.
But yeah, assuming you get the votes to do that, then you guys need to go to lunch together and figure out a plan that everybody's going to agree on. Obviously, we don't want to waste the $7 million that the federal government's given us. That's basically where we're stalemate at that point. Or I can do individual approval appropriation ordinances for each item, and you can narrow down what it is that is the source of the disagreement. One thing.
You've already done that. That's what they have in
Well,
their
I
packet.
thought that's what we were just doing though, is addressing them individually. My motion to fund was an attempt to address it individually.
Tiffany, I thought we did this last month. That Kim and I voted no last month on the Blue Lake. Everybody else voted for it. I thought we already voted to give them the money.
We
That was
voted
an intent
That was
for a
just
letter
a
of
letter of
intent.
intent, not the actual appropriation of the funds.
Which the letter had already been sent to them. They already assume you're giving them the money.
Well, and I would like to back up here because usually if you have one member that's missing and it's a 3-3 vote, then it's put to a second vote before it dies. So I feel that we got ahead of ourselves on that issue. And I know we're past that now and we have another motion that's on the table that needs to be addressed, but I would suggest that maybe we move too quickly on not going to a second vote on a tie vote.
Councilman, would you withdraw your motion so that we can do a second vote on the previous issue?
I will withdraw my motion on the plan.
Is that acceptable to the second?
Are we going to have some discussion before the second vote? I mean, are we just going right into the second vote?
We'll have the opportunity for discussion if you like, and then we can address this one afterwards, but we are taking that motion off the table.
Okay.
A tie vote. Is there further discussion concerning the funding of exclusively the Blue Lake plan, portion of the plan?
So my intent by making that motion was to create this as an à la carte issue rather than the one document that we're addressing just this one issue. And the reason that I thought that it was appropriate to do that and that it would be easy to do that because essentially we already have promised them the money at the last meeting. So for us not to approve this at this point in time, I don't feel as being responsible to getting that project and those people moving to where they need to be, knowing that we're going to support it because we essentially have already said that we're supporting it. So I'm trying to take this out of any further discussion that we have to have, along with the radio system, the consulting services that have already been voted on to fund. I'm trying to take this one off the table in that a la carte concept. So that's why I made the motion, please.
And then my understanding is that then we could not fund anything else or whatever else we wanted at this point in time. And if we chose not to appropriate any other funds, then we would have to meet with the commissioners and say, this is what we would like to see changed on these particular issues before we'll fund them.
I mean, really what you have in front of you, by the word motion, eliminates the everything.
Right.
Individually appropriate twice, so, and you doing it all per, which sounds like what you guys are saying you want to do, what you should do, and then I'll give you the rest of them, and you can act on them or not for next meeting. That's what I thought you were trying to do too, George. I think it just, you guys have gotten really confused, and I'm sorry about that. And I had anything
Well,
to do with
it's not your responsibility. It's no attorney's responsibility. We were just given that information from another source.
Hey, it's a confusing one. It's not very clear. It's changed about 80 times since they approved it. So what you may have been assuming probably was the first 80 draft of what they told us to do it. So
Well, and without our last person here, that's probably what, because I didn't vote for it, because I had those questions of that now I'm assuming I'm not supposed to have the questions for, but I didn't vote for it. So now we're at I don't know how to get over that hump.
Well, we vote again, and if it's tied, we address it in the future. And
But we did give them the intent, the letter of intent. It was passed by the
Mr. Chairman.
majority.
yes,
unfortunately, though, with the letter of intent, that was an authorization for the contractor to begin work.
Yeah.
And they moved forward in good faith because Tim and I both signed a letter of intent that council authorized Tim to sign and commissioners authorized me to sign. So
So the council doesn't approve this, then for the ARPA plan, then the money would end up coming out of county general from the county.
well, and
And
I
we
mean,
don't want that.
that was my second thought. If we don't want to use the ARPA funds for this, then I think the commissioners would need to readdress that in a meeting and figure out where they'd like to pay for that project from.
if you do not have a concern about this particular expenditure, you can vote yes. If you do have a concern about this particular expenditure, you can vote no. And we go from there. Any further discussion?
I would like to discuss it
Okay,
because I'm back to where I was when we voted the first time for the intent, the letter of intent. And it was, I hadn't heard from the actual owner. We heard from the association. I didn't hear any plan of upkeep, what's going to keep this from happening again. And is there a plan for upkeep? Or is that going to go back to the original owner? That's what's keeping me, the lack of information. But it did pass the letter of intent by the majority. And I understand the funds. And if I was them, I would think the funds were there too. That's where my mind is.
I mean, the county has nothing to do with it. I mean, it's not a county tile or a ditch or a culvert or anything. And I'm just afraid I call it an HOA. If we give money to an HOA, that's going to open us up for everybody in the county of an HOA wanting money. And I'm just not comfortable with doing that. And I'll agree. We don't know who lands it on, if they're okay with it or what they're going to do, take care of it later on, or it's going to fall back on us and want more money later.
well, again, I would say that's the commissioner's responsibility
Okay.
to have covered those things because it's their plan.
And we're just supposed to approve things without a plan. As
I would
council.
say the plan has been accomplished.
Yeah, we actually had several meetings. We included state legislators, DNR, IDEM,
Well, then I guess,
everyone in the room.
then I
And
guess it just needs to be relayed more in depth in the future.
Sure.
So there isn't that question because I'm sure it would have been discussed. I can't imagine passing
Right.
this without it, but it hasn't been relayed to us. Does that make sense?
Sure. You're always welcome to come, though. Next time we have a meeting, you're more than welcome to come and show face.
Any further discussion?
Well,
All in favor of the motion to fund the Blue Lake project as part of the ARP plan, raise your right hand. Opposed? And the motion passes 4-2. Are there any other portions of the plan that council members would like to bring a motion to approve at this point in time?
Well, I'd like to get back to my motion. Okay. Where we send the whole plan, other than the Blue Lake, back to the commissioners and let the commissioners bring it to us one at a time so we can appropriate the money to approve it. Take them one at a time, whenever the commissioners want to bring it to us.
I'll second your motion and also ask what at this point has not been approved that we would make individual items to come forward later. That's my question, because the radios have been approved, right?
Yes,
The money has to be-
Consultations.
Have been approved.
and the Blue Lake Association has been
Lake
approved.
Association's been approved.
So that allows broadband infrastructure, regional water and sewer district, and infrastructure. There's a 6-point plan and 3 have been approved.
Still have to be
Yes.
that.
So the commission passed a plan, and I think Council Wheeler's asked to bring that individually. Are you saying you don't want anything that's on the plan, the rest on the plan, you want a new plan?
Yes,
You don't like what's on the plan now?
no. I want it brought to us one at a time.
I think that's what we're doing right now, is these are being taken one at a time.
Well,
They have to
I
pass-
just,
They have to pass a plan for all of us.
I just feel like in this, it was a plan and everything got thrown in there. It wasn't separated, you know.
But we can address them separately.
Right.
They've approved the plan. We've already funded 3 items out of it. So I'm not sure how we can ask for an entirely new plan. We can ask for changes, which then adjust it. Is that correct?
What's being asked is, every item in the plan right now can be taken individually. I think what you're doing now, are you asking for something different than taking each thing that's in the plan now and funding that individually?
Well, as Joan said earlier, you know, the commissioners asked for this in this plan, different items in the plan. But we never got down to what was all involved in that. You know, yeah, they want X amount of dollars for radios, they want an X amount of dollars for broadband and everything, but we've never seen any kind of a plan as far as the overall cost, unless we're just gonna give them all that money and not see anything.
More details about what's. in the
Right.
plan now. Is that correct?
We've seen a presentation. We have not seen an actual written, laid out plan. We've not seen a plan.
You're talking about a specific item, the presentation, or are you talking about the whole plan in
Well,
general?
he said broadband, so that's where,
I think
on the broadband.
I think what was confusing me and how the commissioners resolved this is the use of the word plan. Because they did pass it. And I think what you're asking for.
Who passed a plan?
Commission,
Okay,
they passed the plan, as they're required to by statute. To appropriate, pay for that plan. So I apologize. I'm not trying to be difficult.
Yeah.
I'm just not understanding exactly what you're looking for.
well, I think we have some misunderstandings because has anybody seen a plan?
This is the plan.
It
There
just
are no
says we're giving
specific
them
details there.
$1.7 million. That's it.
Well, let me ask Chad a question, if I could, please. So with this plan, there's $3,476,716.42 that has been put towards the Whitley County infrastructure. Is that a precise, thought out, penny counted, materials bought plan, or is that a this is the amount with the other stuff that would be left over from our ARPA funds, and we're going to put it towards this so we don't lose that money back to this, to the government.
Yeah, so the, yep, so, and you, I never touched with you, but I mean, that is everything that's left, okay? So, but you're not gonna get
And
a $3.467 million one-line appropriation. What you're gonna get is over the next 2 years, little bits and pieces of that. We need to do a new bridge here. We need to do, you're gonna get, you know, we need to work on infrastructure because we're building a big project. You know, we need, so you're gonna get that one, which is a big project. You're gonna get, my vision is, you're gonna get, as we need the funds, you're gonna get a plan that's gonna say, okay, building a new jail, we need to build the roads out to the jail, and we need to do this, this, this. So as a result, we need $474,000, and here's the bid for that. That
So-
one's different.
so at
because
that
it's a big
point-
category. That one, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that one, I think, is how we'll deal with it. And you'll individually approve each expense that comes out of that plan. The plan just says, this amount of money goes to this thing. Then because it's not just pay this vendor that amount, it'll have to be, we'll have to bring them to you.
So my point into making that statement is this last line on here is the catch-all on the other funds that aren't being spoken for, but that's not necessarily being spoken for. That's how the commissioners are going to use that money, is to work on the infrastructure of the county with some shortages, either the county, the highway department currently has, or to enhance what they have to make sure that we spend that money and it doesn't go back. So if you go up 2 lines and you look at the water and sewer infrastructure at $1 million, if we decide not to fund that for the commissioners, then essentially they could come back to us, or they could drop that $1 million down and make the 3.4 million, 4.4 million, and use the funds that way.
Correct.
So,
It can be amended at any time.
so really there's only 2 items that we're still looking at here as an à la carte, because that last item of Whitley County infrastructure is going to gobble up whatever funds don't get approved on the other 2 issues.
Thought on that is ARPA money can't be used for new construction, but it can be used for portions of a jail project, or you know, things that are related to it. Just not, you can't just say we're spending that on a new jail.
Do they allow you, the ARPA funds, when they disperse the funds, do they allow you to hold that, or they hold it for you?
We are holding the funds.
Okay,
We have it now
okay.
in its own separate account. I think part of what drives all this confusion is that we came in here believing that we were going to be asked to approve this plan.
The
Rather
council
than
always
input
just
pieces.
approves the funding. They
Right,
allocate funds.
but that's not what we were led to. We've talked about this for 2 months and no one ever made that clear. Who brought the pieces, so.
I would say that I was clear. That was my understanding all along. Maybe we all didn't, we're all on the same page, but that was my understanding.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Can we have the motion repeated?
Do you have anything written yet?
Yeah, he just wants to send the plan back to the commissioners and have everything brought back one at a time, is what his motion was.
So if there is discussion, we can do it at that time with that, whatever one he brings forward to us, the commissioners.
I think, and that's what we're doing individually with, like the Blue Lake form right here that's gonna need signed. Everything's gonna come to you individually for your approval. I think what, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have no say over the plan. Commissioners set the plan. You choose whether you want to fund the plan or not.
Yeah, I think we're already doing what you're asking.
Okay.
I think.
Well, then I'll withdraw.
You withdraw the motion.
May I ask a question? of Matt and Andy. Can portions of the ordinance be considered lost revenue? Can you do, like, we have a project-based plan. Can we also do a lost revenue plan? The funds, we were told early on that Willie County could use it as lost revenue, and then they changed the rule and said that like everywhere could use it as lost revenue and roll it into their general fund and use it for some large expenses. Can we do that? Can we do both?
In other words, part of the plan, revenue, that could be the ARPA. My understanding is that is true. You don't have, it's not an all or nothing thing. You can say we lost $1 million revenue.
Still be appropriate out of the fund under the revenue category.
But there's presumption of lost revenue.
Right.
Then at that point, it just goes.
Maybe we spend it out of the fund that it's sitting in now, replace an expense out of the general fund with something that we're spending out of the ARPA fund.
That's the, you guys have already hired and I think approved appropriation for Baker Tilly. Or maybe you haven't kind of greenlighted it without getting the actual ordinance. That's why they're involved. If council wants to do it. If that makes sense, you understand it, but then again,
So then, Chad, with that information, why wouldn't we put all the projects that we haven't agreed on yet and transfer all that money into county general, and then as you work on the county, with the county infrastructure or the broadband infrastructure, then you come to us and ask us for those funds out of county general. If we're able to do that, why wouldn't we be putting this in county general?
Well, I think maybe we can't put it in county general. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. It would stay in its fund that we've created for ARPA funds. But because it's less than 10 million and because I'm thinking, and we can confirm with Baker Tilly, but I'm thinking that we can use the money from the fund where it sits to replace some expenses in our general fund, which ultimately then the result would be that you build your cash reserve in your general fund. And I'm just exploring that as an option right now because they're here and I wanted to ask them.
So who would create that plan on what monies that we would spend and not take out of county general?
I think it would just need to go back to the county commissioners to rework it.
And amend the current plan to that effect.
Which can be done at any given time.
if you guys don't allocate funds, you're gonna have to do it anyway. At some point, they've given you a plan. You don't approve the parts of the plan individually as we're gonna do them, as Tony suggested. And those are gonna sit there. And if time expires and the stalemate isn't resolved, the federal government is money back. So I'm sure you guys will figure it out. And maybe, as Chad is suggesting, revenue replacement is the way to do it. It's just, we'll figure that out. And Baker Tilly will ensure how those funds can not be used, and I'm sure they can answer that.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn and the second agrees with it. Okay. Any call to approve any other items in the ARP plan as presented? Hearing no desire to do so and no motion, we will move on in our agenda. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your help.
For purposes of clarity, and you want me for your next council meeting to have the radios and the umbrella, or basically, sorry, a specific just for that one approved. I haven't done that yet. I mean, that you guys have kind of.
Yeah.
greenlighted that, so if those two ready.
Yes, since we've already,
First one, the other ones, maybe I'll just do all of them and you guys will have
and then we can choose to act on any one of them. But those that we've already approved and funded need the official resolution. Okay, thank you.
You guys need to walk.
This is the one you asked.
They further, they can.
I think this is what we ask you to do, and we appreciate your time, but we know your time is valuable. So, yeah. Gentlemen, you are free to go. Okay. All right, thank you.
I think at some point, on a side note, I'll bring it up right now, that council should hire an attorney for council, because we've had council or lawyer representation before, and it's always though at the grace of the commissioners, because we don't have an attorney. I'm not so sure that we shouldn't be applying our attorney, so then when we have somebody here, we're getting advice, the comments from them are, well, we don't really work for you, but here's what we would do. So I think that's something that we need to have discussion on in the council, having.
Lynn's right here.
Okay, that's noted. Next item is Surf Broadband. Do you have a presentation planned, or is this Q&A? What is the intention?
Thought we could, I was comparing with Surf Internet, and I can answer any questions that you may have today.
Yes, please, or at least be at the microphone. My first question is, we've seen the various proposals, we have those. What is the latest number of households that, as you are proposing the latest plan, would actually be served, or your estimate of that in Whitley County?
Yes, were this to be a standalone project on its own with the SURF contribution and the ARPA contributions, we would pass 757 homes.
Okay.
Now, I would like to elaborate upon that. These funds are also foundational to, we've talked about in several instances, kind of our multi-phase plan for the county. And the areas that we wish to develop within the county are strategically located to allow us to expand into further rural areas. The way we expand into further rural areas is through our partnership with Northeastern REMC, as well as additional grant funding outside of the ARPA grant. So if I may circulate this around here. There are multiple funding sources available for broadband at this time. So the Indiana Connectivity Program, if we have established kind of, I guess, network points throughout the county, the Indiana Connectivity Program, sorry, the size of the, but if you see these blue dots on this map, that shows households that have applied for subsidy for broadband through OCRA, the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. That, those applications being reviewed by SURF right now, and we will bid on them. So we will bid a price per connection up to a certain dollar amount. They're not going to fund $30,000 for one household, but we'll bid for that grant. And since we would be able to be out near south of Blue Lake, or we would be in Loud, or we would be in Tunker, the homes that have applied for it, it's a lot more affordable for us to get there because we've had that funding allowed us to establish connectivity at that location. The next one would be the Next Level Connections Grant, which we anticipate going out in in January. If we can leverage our public-private partnership of the ARPA dollars in that case, we lower the cost per passing of the additional households that we would apply for through the Next Level Connections grant. So we're taking the 757. I encourage you not to consider that to stand on its own. That we'll get 757 customers and then kick on out of here. It's not happening. Part of an overall plan to leverage the federal and state monies that are available to us for broadband development and augment that with their own investment. But it does, for us to invest, does take federal and state subsidy for us to make a business case for this. So the NLC grant will come out in, we're hoping in January. The dates haven't been set yet. We'll apply for that. We're very confident that we can receive it based on the public-private partnership, based on the level of need, and based on the business plan and the partnership that we have within our EMC to get this done. The big kahuna out there is a $10.4 million grant that we've applied for through NTIA. Given some of our time constraints with deadlines, we had assumed within that our NTIA application that we would be receiving 1.7 million in ARPA funds for this project. If we get the NTIA grant, SURF expands its $870,000 investment or a share of that portion of the ARPA grant. We expand that to 3.5 million to match the federal government's 5.2 million combined with the state ARPA grant. If we don't get the ARPA grant, we're going to withdraw from the NTIA grant. So what's at stake here are several programs to go through. What is more a little, I left it for last, is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is sort of an auction, kind of a bidding on census blocks and areas for connectivity. Now, each one of these programs, we've assessed it. It's been approved from a business case scenario, and it's part of an overall strategic plan to get everyone in this county connected. And I don't know if you have other options or other companies that are pursuing it at this level or this extensively, but I mean, we're wanting the funds not for just the 757. As you can see, it's part of an overall strategy.
So if you get that 5.2 million in the middle mile grant and you add 5.2 million to it, that's going to change that 757 to what?
7,400 or something like that. I mean, we're talking every aspect of the county. So this is to haul us in and out and get us into other areas of the county and interconnect our county with Kosciuszko County, Allen County, Noble County.
So 1,700 and something?
I don't know the exact number of households. It's actually the NTIA and middle mile grant is not directly for households. It's for infrastructure. It's more for, instead of like neighborhood streets, it's for highways. So we're getting our highways in and out of communities to haul in to the community. But when we have highways, then we can spur off of those highways more easily on a market base or business case based scenario, because we're not getting to a home on 600 South. We're just going from 500 South instead of building from the water tower in Columbia City, 12 miles to it. We have our infrastructure established to spider web out from.
If the Next Level Connections grant and or the middle mile grant are not received, what happens to the 1.7 million?
1.7 million still funds the 757. Our investment will continue and our private investment will still continue in areas like Blue Lake, et cetera. But we don't give up. We continue to find other options. So, I will say this, overall, Whitley County in the rural area is not a business case, market-based, profit-driven initiative for any company that I can think of that exists at this time. There may be one in 10 years that can make a business case for doing this without subsidy of some kind, but you're not going to get people connected in the county without subsidy. Just plain and simple.
We have had several individuals come and speak on behalf of this, and I think we all in general support the concept of the need for broadband across the county. How will people know when they will actually receive broadband? Because some of the people that are desirous the most of it may not get access for 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, so I can address how people who are within our footprint for the initial plan for the ARPA grant. Excuse me, we have all of their addresses. We have a contact for a lot therein. We notify throughout the construction project that it is available. We receive countless inquiries and we map all of those inquiries out and we build out clusters of interest. So when financially feasible. So as we know that there's a cluster of, let's say, 6 households in this area, we're going to look at the Indiana Connectivity Program or NLC or our own private investment to do so. But as far as going back to your original question, sorry, I hesitate to give a time frame for things. Given the fact that we do have some infrastructure in place that we can leverage through Northeastern RMC and the existing infrastructure that we have in Columbia City itself, I think the construction process in the county will be a little bit, what could I say, a smoother than the city. The city's been great. It's just dealing with NIPSCO and locates. That density has been really hard for us to make progress in distance-wise. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I guess the answer is I hesitate to say and commit. So.
And the infrastructure you referred to with NIPSCO is essentially access to their service poles?
No, the utility locates for NIPSCO are outsourced to one single company. And so sometimes they have, they're not as responsive to our requests for utility locates. So we don't get as many route miles done for locates as we would like to. So in a given day, we might only have 300 feet that we can build because that's all the locates that have been done.
So, but how is NIP, what's your partnership with NIP? I'm sorry.
We're doing
REMC, what are they providing?
Yes, good question. Northeastern REMC is in the process of constructing a fiber ring throughout Allen and Whitley counties. This is primarily or essentially to serve automation and metering and security for their substations. So if you look at Parkview Regional Center, there's a Parkview, or there's a Northeastern REMC sub there, and there's one south of South Whitley. Northeastern has overbuilt their network, what we call overbuilt. So there's additional capacity on that network that we are leasing on the fiber strands themselves. So essentially, that provides us ring connectivity around Whitley County and into Allen County and Southwest Allen County. They have also provided us with expedited pole review So we'll propose to put, attached to their poles, a discount on pole lease, a discount on the fiber lease. They're very committed to establishing connectivity for their members. Their members are screaming for connectivity options. They just can't make a business case for doing it in-house. So if we can do it, if we can offer the service to their members, then they'll make as much in-kind contribution as they reasonably can in order to do so.
So your construction will essentially be from the locations on their ring.
Yes, yeah. So we'll leverage that ring. So many of the locations that are part of our ARPA plan are located on or adjacent to that ring to make it, to establish, I guess, a beachhead for us for expanding further into other areas. So we're already working with Northeastern RMC with connectivity for Whitco schools. So we've used part of their fiber and built our own fiber. And then they're also hauling us out of, we call hauling out of, but providing the transport services for us for Whitley County Community Schools.
Has there been any progression made with Indiana, Michigan? The chair bus
We've been in contact with them and they have full review applications underway. So Cherubusco will be, our plan for Cherubusco is pole-based, to place our fiber and pole instead of burying it. But those poles are owned by AEP.
Other questions?
On your grants that you're applying for, what indication have you gotten from the people that would be approving those? I mean, how confident is this, or is it just?
The only one that's underway now, aside from ARPA, but the middle mile grant is underway and we're into the second round. So we're preliminary approval, modified our submission and provided additional information just last week. And then we're on to the next round.
How many rounds do you go before you get it?
Till March.
Till March.
Yeah. So again, we're assuming the 1.7 million contribution to augment our 3.5 to get us to the 5.2 match for the federal. Okay.
I'd just like to say that I have your service and it's great. And my desire is that everybody in the county would ultimately be able to have that level of service.
Good.
Anything else? Thank you very much. I found it very helpful.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Gary Bird. Gary is here to tell us about cemetery cleanup and restoration repairs for our veteran grave markers.
Good morning. Trust everybody got enough sleep last night, being that I voted and you were on that, so congratulations to all those. I'm here today to talk about veteran cemeteries. Over the last several years, I have put flags on the cemetery graves pretty much throughout the county, or coordinate with other organizations like the AMVETS or the BUSCO, VFW, or Legion to make sure that we put as many flags as we can on veteran graves. And believe me, there are some cemeteries out there I didn't know that existed, but I find them and we get flags out there. So over those years, I have found that there's many graves that are old. There's 1812, there's Revolutionary, there's Civil War. They're all very old. And unfortunately, those families have gone away, but the stones have become in needing that cleaning and addressing from just cleaning them up. So my wife says I need things to do. So I took on this project to look at these various stones and see what we can do to repair them and clean them. So in contact with the National Cemetery Bureau, I was able to identify some ways to clean stones. And also working with the Burn and Decatur Legion Posts, who have also already have embarked on this program, kind of modeling a little bit what they're doing. And one of the things they stated in their model was to get out there and communicate with all the government entities, so that everybody has an idea that, one, this guy out there digging around in graves is not trying to dig up people. Two, there's no cost to my government. I am a believer that you as an individual have an opportunity to do something for your government, and your government can't do everything. So this is one of those things. Trustees are on a limited budget. Thank God they get out there and mow the various cemeteries, but some of the details have to be left up to individuals. And I think many of us on Memorial Day go out and we spruce up our relatives' cemetery plots and so forth. So this is a kind of a large project. There's over 3,000 graves. I'm venturing to say about a third of those need some sort of cleanup and repair. So I'm asking or just communicating the support from our government entities that I'm out there, along with several other groups, to bring back some restoration and cleaning of our veteran cemetery graves. And hopefully by Memorial Day, we'll have a large portion of it done. So I kind of broke this down in a couple of different phases because it is a large task. Looking at a phase one, straighten it, undermine holes and clean the marker. Some of them, especially the Civil War, they just have settled. There's a tilt to them, so they just need to be brought back up. You can literally just move them by hand if you need equipment. But also, there may be some that is toppled over. If you ever try to pick up a cemetery stone, especially the old ones, they're very heavy. So may require a piece of equipment. I have secured a couple of folks that would help me with doing that. Identify and non-veterans. I know the question is, well, what happens if I have a relative and the stone's toppled over or whatever? That's kind of a second phase of things. We will identify those, record those, and try to contact those families to let them know if they would like those addressed. We will do so. If we can't, we'll check with the trustees or the churches or whatever is in that cemetery to get that repaired. So in phase 1 and 2 cemeteries, I've identified, since there's so many, we're looking at the city's Green Hill, which I'll show you an experiment that I've done out there. Knoll, which is where my interment will be, and then South Park, and then Columbia Township. And if you want to know where Columbia Township is, if you're out on 30 and you see the sign that says Columbia City, back over behind that is a cemetery. My wife tells me that's the Columbia Township Cemetery because her father used to drop her off there to mow it years and years ago. So that's how I found that, but it's also several veterans in that cemetery. And then phase 3 would be looking at cemeteries by request of family members or churches for us to look at as a restoration repair. So this is an example in Decatur, around that area, working with Gary Murdoch, who's a good friend of mine. We were fellow first sergeants in the Army, so we kind of know each other. But you can see the stone on the left is a little deteriorated. And then after applying the materials on the stone and a little elbow grease, you can see how visible the stone has been. So it's kind of modeling after them. So briefing all the parties, the first evidence is getting the feedback to put us on the road of success. I don't want to be out there and upset somebody because we repaired or cleaned their veteran stones. But I will tell you that in the Veterans Administration, that is illegal to power wash any veteran stone. That was kind of new information for some of our funeral homes, because Worley Monuments has a power washing program that they'll power wash your loved one's grave if you need some. But in the Veterans Administration, you're not supposed to do that. That will deteriorate the stone. So we will not be using any sort of power washing technique. As I said up here, limited cost to our government, just their support. We're looking to, right now I'm using my egg money, but hopefully we will get some groups that want to help us donate for the material. So the labor side of this, I've had several groups such as the Elks, the Rotary, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Legions, and so forth that coming out of the woodwork that want to help do this. This requires just a one-person task per grade. You don't need an army of people to go out and do it. You can literally, you as a family could go out and apply this project. So I'm putting together the kits and the process on what to do to clean the stone up. And of course, I want the community to know about the project. My wife recently made me up some signs to put out in the cemetery that veterans restoration, restoring and cleaning of cemetery graves are in process, so that as people come by, I recently had a group, the Catholic Church came over and asked me what I was doing because I was over cleaning a stone in the Catholic cemetery, and they wanted to know what I was doing, and I explained to them, and they were surprised. They were very happy that I was actually doing that. But again, just trying to let folks know what's going on. It's a long-term project. I'd like to see it become more of a kind of adopt a highway type of approach where Boy Scout troop or a group will take ownership of the cemetery and keep it clean and keep it maintenance to help our trustees, our city officials to keep the cemeteries, especially for veterans, in great condition. Go ahead and move on. So the material that I'm using is called D2. It's an environmentally friendly spray material. I will tell you it's pretty expensive. It's about $40, $45 a gallon. I'm able to use about 10 ounces on a stone, and that's applying it to kind of let it settle. Then I wash that, and then I spray again, and then I wash it, and then I spray it for a third time and leave it. This material eats away all the mold and that green stuff that you see on the stones and so forth. So it really does clean it up. So you could spray it on there and just let the rain and snow kind of wash it away. But I've kind of more than McDonald's approach. I want to see results now and not tomorrow. So this is not my first cemetery project, just so that I have some experience there. We recently was donated a flagpole from the city, and we had an Eagle Scout that was looking for a project. And so at Knoll Cemetery, we now have a flagpole in place. And this flagpole, to our surprise, there had been at least 3 other flagpoles where this one set. After digging down to the foundation, we found wood, brick, concrete, so that kind of told us that there was, other flagpoles there. So hopefully this one will remain at least a little longer. But so that's an example. Go ahead. So these are some stones I'm talking about, just so if you're not clear or you don't visit cemeteries very often, you can see that there's mold, the black material on the stones, in some cases green. We also have the issue where, I'm not going to say how it happened, but if you notice the stone has shifted. This is a husband and wife veteran, and if you notice the stone on the left has been moved off its base, and so we will slide that back on place so that's as well as clean it. That's kind of the repair aspect of it. These are some other examples. If you notice there at Knoll Cemetery on the far right, those stones are laying on the ground. Not sure if that's where those folks belong or not, but I actually have an Eagle Scout candidate that is interested in researching to make sure those folks are and get those stones resurrected back to where they need to be. The one in the bottom left is a Daughters of American Revolutionary stone, and you can tell it's kind of a modern stone. But because there's some trees in the area and so forth, the moss and the has really taken over that stone. So we want to get that cleaned up. Go ahead. And again, at the top right, you see that stone is actually fallen off the base. It's still setting up, but it's fallen off its base. We want to replace that, put some epoxy to make sure it doesn't happen again. Probably the base needs to be shored up as well. And we want to get that stone repaired as well. And then if you notice in the bottom, this is at Columbia Township. There's a tree laying across those Civil War stones. And the tree's been there for a long time, 3 or 4 years. Next. So you can see that tree in the bottom that's been laying there. And then in the back, you can see the stones laying there. In the top right, that's a rather modern marker. but it has been ran over by a mower. And you can see on the far left-hand side and at the top where the blades have hit it has damaged that. I'm in contact with Leavenworth Memorial Services that furnishes these markers and asking if I can get Mr. Holt's, Don Holt's marker replaced. I don't know if they'll do that or not, but they're gonna try to get it replaced. Okay, next slide. And so this is the before and after my little experiment in at Green Hill. And if you notice on the left, you can hardly read the marker. And then Mr. Effort, I love that name, and how clear and clean it is. And that's, again, this little elbow bruise, but didn't really take me all that long to do it. And the next slide is another good example. This is our Spanish American war vet. This one's really easy to find. If you go into Green Hill and you take a left, he's right there by the road. He's by himself. And I always put a penny on his stud, and I always put the flag out on his stud. He's kind of adopted veteran that I've had, but his stone is leaning, and we need to straighten it back up and put some aggregate behind it to keep it that way. So this is kind of an example of some of the work, but again, I'm trying to shore up the process so that I can give this to folks to do, and how much to spray and so forth. It's my information, and if you need to get a hold of me or interested in more. But again, let me just reiterate that at this point, and not looking for any government funding or appropriations or so forth. This is strictly done on a volunteer basis and using our community business partners to fund anything. Okay, any questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Personnel Committee. We have 2 items for discussion.
Which one do you want to do first? You want to bring Katie up first,
Sure.
please?
Morning.
Morning.
What questions do you have, I suppose? I believe the proposal that you have in front of you is just a follow-up from several other meetings that we had pertaining to the foreman salary where it was reevaluated by WIS. They did have an advisement that they would recommend that we do increase the foreman's pay due to his supervisory nature of his role. And then at the last council meeting, it was requested that the personnel committee review it and have a recommended salary. So I believe that that is what has been presented in front of you today.
And we sent that through WISC, and we are going to stay, we recommend staying with what WISC tells us we have. That's what we hired them to do. So we went with their recommendation on the salary.
Need a motion to approve the personnel committee's recommendation.
Yes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
When would you like that to be effective? For payroll.
Effective August 7,
Is that what you-
2022.
Yes. Foreign salary for 2022 be 60,095, effective August the 7th, 2022.
Any further discussion?
You need to adjust that and set it going forward in the next year's salary ordinance then, or is that already factored into what we're getting ready to approve next?
I'll be bringing in additional in January to change the salary ordinance because it's too late to have that in there.
Any other questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. And let it show that it was unanimous. And our next item from Personnel Committee is regarding the museum staff. There you are, Doctor.
Good morning. So do you have questions or do you want me to?
State your name for the
Okay,
record.
so Russ Gilliam, I'm chairman of the Whitley County Historical Society. Chad's on the board also. And this has come up where Danny Tippman has resigned. This was several months ago. So we're looking for a new director. 2 points we need to look at. And we've had 2 different meetings and we've been unanimous on both the different sessions as we get more information. But we're recommending a full-time position for that director. Previously it had been 2 part-time. That created some issues that were as far as who's in charge. And also it was, I think, better to have a full-time person that's going to be more committed to that position. Also, we've had 3 total applications, Mr. Comfer and Rachel Rhodesfeld, and then the existing assistant director is Aaron Matthew, and he's filling in right now. Our board felt like Aaron really has done a great job. I've known him for about 13 years. And he's got a lot of background. It's not like operating a piece of equipment. You have a lot of networking, a lot of contacts in the Indianapolis Historical Society, and a lot of things going on. And especially like we were just talking about the cemeteries, he was hopeful on getting the Concord Cemetery restored. That was done this summer. So he has also helped in publishing several books in our county that you're aware of, in addition to taking care of the Thomas Marshall Home, the only National Historic Site in our county, and is in process of doing another book, a reprint on Thomas Marshall, in addition to these other books. And also he had the vision for and helped to complete, if those of you have been in the museum, these different dioramas and featured individuals from our county that are in the Marshall Home. So I think Aaron, as you've looked at his, I assume you've looked at all their resumes, right? Okay, so he's very strong in computers, and I would estimate that in the last 3 years, he's saved the county several thousands of dollars just in taking care of computer details. So I think that's an important aspect, but we highly recommend Aaron for the position. If you require us to do interviews, we sure will, but that's our recommendation from the Historical Society, which is, it's a volunteer group, but we work with them on a daily basis. He had a nice lunch for the volunteers. We have several volunteers and they kind of come and go. And he's good with working with volunteers, and that's an essential role of the Historical Society, to have these volunteers come in and do a lot of time consuming work. So they're being called to do that, which we're thankful for. Questions?
I'll just,
On behalf of the Personnel Committee.
on behalf of Personnel Committee, Joan and I met since Tim put his application in for this. We had a lot of discussion. We were on 2 sides of the table, so we decided to meet and go to the museum. So Joan and I, 2 weeks ago, whatever, we met, went through the museum, had good conversations, spent a couple hours there, looked everything over. When we came out of there, our opinion is we don't think it's necessary for a full-time employee. We think a director and assistant director works good that way. There's just not enough flow through that museum of people to justify, to me and Joan, a $46,000 salary plus benefits. So our recommendation is to stay with 2 part-time, a director and assistant director. Jennifer, you have anything else on it, or Joan?
I found the museum very organized. They've done a great job. We spent a lot of time with Aaron. He was very honest with us. He did a good job doing the tour. Everything, I mean, they've got everything so fine-tuned. I think it runs pretty well with part-time people.
So that the personnel recommendation would be leave as is with part-time, no full-time.
I would have concerns. In doing that, I think it would be appropriate to move to a full-time position. Number one, because I don't think it's really going to cost us anything by the time you look at these two salaries that we're already paying and just condense it into one salary and then have that person be the department head or in charge of the volunteers and organize things that way. Then we've got somebody that's a consistent that we can always go to. If you look at what we're paying now, and if you look at the benefit package, it's just a matter of a few $1,000s difference. Also, I think that we need to keep in mind that along with all of our other departments, we leave a lot of these decisions up to that board or that agency on what, or that department on what they see as the best fit for them. And I know, and I don't want to discredit what you guys did, but a 2-hour visit, I don't think probably comes close to the amount of time that Dr. Gilliam and the other board members spend organizing and making sure that that place is properly ran. And I also recognize, not that I want to get into endorsing a candidate, but you guys have your finger on the pulse of the employees and what's needed. And I think that we should, if that's what they're asking for, I think that's what we should give them.
So just a brief comment. Aaron is, I suppose he's 40s. He's got family. And the other person would probably fill in as assistant director, Pam, she's probably early 70s. So she's not going to be here a whole lot longer. So we would be looking at another assistant person in there. So, our feeling was shared as the full-time position would be a stronger position. I can see more things being accomplished and a more stable situation for him. And he's just told me on a personal basis that it's very difficult for him to make ends meet on a part-time with the 3 children he has. And, he can make a lot more money being a computer tech somewhere too. So, but he's motivated for history and loves what the county.
Do you want to bring up the hours? No?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go with you.
For the museum hours?
Yeah.
What are the plans for the museum hours? Because right now it's not even really covered full time. I mean, are they going to expand to Saturday, or how would the museum hours change?
Kind of your advice on that, on what you think would be done. So
I think it would be more the board and the county commissioners on that.
Yeah, because the hours are very limited.
They are limited. I agree, but it's also small staff.
Yeah.
And I think with a full-time director, there's still 2 other part-time positions there. So that director can be the consistent, but there's always, if he's managing it correctly, there's always coverage. There's always going to be somebody there. So, that's something the board could look at, is expanding the hours.
So the hours right now, they're off Monday, they're there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and off at noon on Friday, just to make the part-time hours. And for security and accountability, there should be more than one person. So, anyhow, your call.
So just for clarification, you would have a full-time position and continue with the part-time assistant.
Yes, and we had talked about some other options too, of having at least a part-time position, at least one. The other part-time position maybe could be filled in. You'd have to look at it with work release folks, Steve's group, or I don't know if the other part-time person would do it, but some of the duties of that second part-time person is cleaning and maintenance, and I think she's only there like 5 hours a week, or rated about 5 hours. So that's something I think probably work release or Steve's crew or one of the other people in maintenance could sit over there and take care of that in a couple hours pretty easy.
I would think you would have to have at least,
And
if not 4.
As a board, we've discussed expanding our volunteer base as well. So which I do know the board is pouring a lot of time into that already for no cost to the county. And then, of course, do you want to talk a little bit about our fundraising efforts outside of that we don't, I mean, the county's not paying for a lot of things because we do a lot of fundraising.
Yeah, we have special different events that people sponsor or fundraise. We could be much more aggressive on that, on some of the fundraisers. But I think specifically some of these different books that we've done on the Civil War and World War II, World War I, and Aetna 109, we've had a lot of people, Clay Geiger volunteered to write these books. Aaron was instrumental in getting them published and organized. The Civil War and World War I books that we have list all veterans from the Civil War and World War I, gives their obituaries, what happened to them, their awards during the service, and we're now working on the World War II books. We get some grants from the state. We had a really great exhibit for Sencho Oki with a Japanese man from our county that was very prominent. And we got a lot of good information that, and that was in part sponsored by not only the state of Indiana for the Asian aspect of the state, but we do cooperate and work with the state of Indiana and the Indiana Historical Society on that. But we don't have like cookie sales and, like chicken, the roasted chicken thing or anything like that.
So Mark, what's your thoughts on, could you clean over there like once a week, just the restroom, or, because you pretty much do everything else, right, Russell? You clean everything else except maybe you need a little help on the restroom end or whatever.
Mark's taking care of the building now, which is great, because Danny was kind of in between on that and trying to get stuff done, but it's great that the county oversees that now, and it's a more coordinated effort. But yeah, I think that's something, if he'd have staff, they could, we just have the one restroom in the annex there that's used more frequently. In the Marshall home, that's basically never used.
What's your thoughts?
Two restrooms are in there. That's minimal usage over there.
What's your thoughts on that, Mark? Well, take a look at it and let us know, please. Okay, thank you.
So before us, there is the option of taking no action, which would be the recommendation of the Personnel Committee, or we could entertain a motion to make this a full-time position, if there is one.
I'll make a motion that we give the library or the museum board the authority to make it into a full-time position.
Do we have a second?
A second, third motion. Does that include the 2 part-time positions also?
Yeah, but those are already current, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're just eliminating 2 of the 4 part-time positions. Making it within full-time position.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. The show is 3-2 and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Continue with personnel.
Yes, just 2 quick items. Jennifer Schneeberry, HR Director. As you know, I received the salary analysis update on October 7th, and it's been asked if I would be able to share that, so I'm just here to request your blessing that I be able to share that with county employees.
And in fact, it is a public document. So no objections.
The other is we met as Personnel Committee, I believe, on Monday, and just to discuss the different changes that happened recently in the Highway and Engineering Department. As you remember, in August, we split a position to help out in the engineering office. It was called the Drainage Project Assistant. And since then, we hired an engineer and we also refilled the position of this drainage project supervisor. So it was felt that that part-time position, that part-time help was no longer needed in that department. So it was moved back to the highway department. Katie also requested that that position essentially just revert back to an equipment operator, which I guess years ago, that's what it was. And so in a sense, that is actually decreasing salary versus increasing the salary. So in personnel, we discussed it and everybody was in favor of the changes, and we didn't feel that it was necessary to bring it to a vote since there was salary. I just wanted to bring it to you more of an FYI. A lot of changes, so I know it's probably confusing.
So Katie, what's your reasoning to drop the assistant part-time drainage or the project assistant and moving back to an operator? He won't be doing any of those duties anymore?
So we had the individual who was the assistant foreman is now moving up to the engineering department and is now going to be in the position of the drainage project supervisor. So we've made a promotion from within the department and moved someone into the assistant foreman position, which ultimately left the drainage position vacant. Historically, in previous years, the drainage duties, so to speak, were split between the foreman and the assistant foreman. And really in looking at those duties, I do not feel that it's really something that can occupy constructive a 37.5-hour week with just those individual duties. And it would be more constructively filled by the two people who essentially are already going to be doing it. So the equipment operator position really is what existed prior to the drainage project assistant position. It was kind of just renamed, and the salary was the same as an equipment operator. So I'm just kind of wishing to revert back to what it was. I think it maybe was 5 or 6 years ago.
So there won't be any salary adjustment?
No, because the position will still exist, but it will actually be less than what I believe was in the salary ordinance, or maybe it won't be because I think it was split in the salary ordinance so there will probably need to be an amendment for the salary ordinance, but it will essentially be less than what that position was making both between both departments.
And formally, it was funded half from the general fund and half from highway, and that will be fully funded from
Back
highway.
to fully funded by the
And this equipment operator will make the same as the rest?
Yes. It will essentially just go back to being lumped in with all the other equipment operators back to the way it was. Like I said, I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Any other questions? Thank you. Mark Sturtevant.
Mark Sturtevant, Whitley County Maintenance. I believe you have a sheet in front of you outlines the solid waste restroom renovation. I was asked to look at these restrooms and see what it takes to get them back up to where they should be. The commissioners approved with the recommendation to go to council for the estimate of $36,250. There was some discussion in the commissioner meeting about possibly taking the HVAC or the heating and air conditioning to the second floor for future use of that space. I did reach out to the contractor, and it was an additional $1,400 to heat and cool that second floor, which could be done at the same time we do this project.
Mark, what's the second floor being used for now?
Right now it's being used for storage, but there's plans of using it for an office. I don't think I can justify explaining what all that entails. Perhaps Katie or Commissioner Banks.
And how will it be used differently?
We're hoping to have actually an office included. Incorporated with that area, that we are intending to have a really
But if we're gonna put the system in, heat and cool the restrooms below, it just makes sense to do it all at the same time.
I make a motion that we approve, the 14, I'd make it $50,250
No,
or
1,400.
1,400,
So 37,650 would be the total.
right. I make a motion that we approve that and be paid out of CEDA, or out of cum cap.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion,
I just can't believe how the former superintendent let two buildings go downhill the way he did. The highway superintendent, because the maintenance was not allowed in there, correct? I can't believe this, that he just let buildings go to rot.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. That's all I have.
Any further? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand and let it show that it is unanimous. Thank you. Sheriff Gatton and any deputies that desire to speak.
Morning, Mark Gatton, Whitley County Sheriff. Starting with the request for transfers.
Did we get,
I sent it later in another email.
okay, in the
They're
email.
just,
Okay.
their end of year housekeeping to transfer a few things.
Okay, so I have one from the jail. Want to move 10,000 out of an employee that became a deputy and we didn't replace him for a while, so we had some money left in the old line item of the jail. Move it over to janitor. That's 10,000. That same employee that moved over, we need money for jail meals, so we have one line item moving 7,000. Two old line items moving 20,000, another one moving 15, and another one moving 18,000 into meals at the jail. And then the last one we have out of two other line items of people that left and we didn't replace, of putting $40,000 into work release meals.
Those are all salaries, Mark, that you're moving?
Yeah, salaries of when we were lower staffed in the jail and we couldn't find people, and then those line items sit there, nobody gets paid out of them. The last time we hired, we're still too short. It took us 2 interview sessions to fill 2 of the 4 spots. So we had some sit empty for a while, and that's been kind of common here lately. We're only getting maybe 4 or 5 apps for a job.
Just simply housekeeping, cleaning up.
Yeah, it's just moving, not asking for anything additional. That money's all there in those line items to move.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would just like to point out too that when we're talking about moving salaries, this isn't about the sheriff not doing a responsible budget. It's not padding an account so you have money to move later. These were people that positions didn't get filled because we couldn't find somebody to fill them. So if anybody has any questions on how come that much money is there to move, it's a direct reflection of not being able to keep fully staffed.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and let it show that it is unanimous.
The next one is a transfer in the sheriff's budget. Another 5,000 to go to gas, and that's from 2 different dispatchers that have left. And wasn't filled right away, so that's 5,000. And then we have a big one here of a dispatcher that was moved from county general into 911, and that has not been replaced yet. That's 30,000 into the gas fund, and that has not been replaced. We had some interviews, and we told them we were unsure on the dispatch center, and they didn't want to take a chance of leaving a job that they had to come in case it wasn't going to be there. So the request is to move to 30,500 from the sheriff's line, it'd be 3 different line items that we had left to move into the gas to finish the year out for squad car.
Where you at on your gas?
Negative. So with this door, if I remember right, we'd be at 95,000. We budget 60.
A month?
60,000 for the year.
Okay, so what do you wanted to switch 30, and what's your projected cost for this year yet?
This should get us at this 35,000. So we'd be right about $95,000 fuel this year, which has been one of the higher years.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So the motion is to transfer these funds in the sheriff's department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and let it show that it's unanimous.
Okay, the next thing before we start, does anybody need coffee, water, facility break? Well, I'm going to try to power through this quickly. You guys are as tired as I am. I think it's pretty quick, right? Okay, so back in May of 2021, backstory, I came and when they did a study for the 50 years old and 20 years of service, remember that wasn't especially liked. So had them do another study of the 2 years, or 2 different studies of both 25 years of service and either 50 years of age or 52 years of age. 50 years old, 25 years of service for the sheriff department would benefit more people, but not all of them, because you get hired later in life. You won't benefit, you'd be under the 55 and 20. If we went to 50 and 25 years, only 2 active employees could take full advantage of leaving at 50 years old and 25 years of service. Anybody else that would be eligible would only be partial time frame of drawing that early special retirement. 52 years old and 25 years of service, only 5 active members would benefit to all 3 years of drawing early. 6 other active members would be to a partial retirement. The partial retirement frame would be 11 months early to 2 years in age month, 8 months early. Those that don't qualify, we spoke back then, that don't qualify for the special early retirement would fall under one of the current ones we have. Years of service at 8, which I think we're about the last 4 of the 8 years service. And then you need 10 years of service to be fully invested, or 8 years of sheriff if you were not an employee. Our pension currently right now has no cost of living adjustments and no insurance that goes with it. So I'm kind of speeding through this. So back to the budgeted money needed. It was the new highlighted, I believe. Let me start off with, we would 0 additional funds needed. Budgeted for 2023 was $336,677. This number has went down in 2020, since 2021 and 2022. Speaking with Stan Brown from One America, it's because one Bill Bright retired, so that went off. And our employee age is going down right now. But our last deputy we hired was a little older, which I put in here, so brought our age back up a little bit. Years of service still went down. With all the contributions from the county council, employees, clerk fees, and sheriff fees, they exceed benefit contributions to the retirees. The plan continues to grow and make money except for 2008 and now the first part of 2022 here. Our pension plan is healthy and funded above average for pension plans. Stan Brown, when I bought him in, brought him in and said our plan was healthy enough to do the 50 years old and 20 years of service. So having eligible employees pay an additional 5 years into the plan will help us fund it. The cost of the different plans on number A there, that was supposed to be 52 years old and 25 on that one, would be an increase of our payroll by 1.7% of total approved payroll. It would make a total contribution of $356,923, an increase of $20,246. Like I said, no additional funds needed budgeted with the clerk and sheriff fees. All the monies would be covering that option. Age and years of service. Just real quick, we are at an average age of 39 years old. And average years of service is, up there. And average years of service of 9.5 years. Like I said, that went down recently because of the retirement. The current plan we have right now, people benefiting faster from the current position. Elected sheriff did 2 consecutive terms and wasn't a current Whitley County Sheriff's Department merit deputy. Contributes for 8 years and starts returning after 55. 20% of the 5 highest years, so their return comes quick. And a deputy right now at the pay invests about 16 years for the same return. Hired from another police department, which we have done a lot. They're normally working on a second pension, so they're going to start drawing theirs quickly and then still get the sheriff's department for a few years and then start drawing off of there. One of the reasons for that I put on there is the Whitley County Sheriff's Department does not have a max age hire requirement like the police and fire, which is 36, right? So did I get that number right?
37, no.
Pros and cons that we spoke on throughout the time I've come up here and talked about it. Early retirement can stop an eligible employee contributing 2% more each year and drawing 2% more on there after 25 years of service. Costs the county more every year. An employee stays up to the max of 74% draw at 32 years of service. Again, that's figured on the 5 highest paid years of their salary. Stops larger deferred retirement option plan draw from the fund. If they join it sooner, they're going to get their lump sum, but it will stop the percentage of going up. Pros and cons continue. Having younger employees should help with your lower insurance claims, medical costs. They're more proactive, policing for the community. Lower pay, of course, start their first year. Less PTO to cover than 20-year plus employees. Less longevity pay up to the years of service retired. Better shape and better mental state. And right now we are at the youngest age in service to start the program now that Whitley County Sheriff's Department's ever been in. We should start going upward because we have a lot what I would consider middle-aged people because the 4 oldest people in the department are all here. So. Some of the cons, loss of years of experience. I know, Tom, you talked one time about having the people with the older experience being there. Training time at the Indiana Law Enforcement commanded me that we'd have to send them to. We try to reduce that by using credits. Younger and more active officers do patrol more miles and use more gas. I'm not going to hide that from you. Questions I've been asked in the past by council. That I think Mr. Algebright asked, so we'd have to do this for all employees. And my answer to that is no. When we all enter into our field of our careers, we get a choice and know what we're going into. So we chose this profession and we knew that pension, but somebody else that chooses another job and has a different pension, I don't think that should be held on us for choosing the career path we chose. Everybody, to me, has a chance to choose their career path in retirement. We must be fine as we hire older deputies. Yeah, like I said, we don't have an age requirement, and most of them we've hired have been in their 40s. Back to the older people, worked with a lot of them over the years. You do get burnt out. You are less active. You no longer want to fight with the younger generation physically. Guys that sit in offices or become in command do lose touch with the road as hard as you try to stay in touch. You just plain old lose your edge on the road. And our average years of, the older guys don't do the training because of that less activity. So our average years of our training officers right now is 7.5 years of experience and service. Your pension's good, comparable to the private sector. I don't remember, we hardly ever use the private sector to compare to the county. That's happened many times with pay. Now, the big tax, the cost comparison from 50 or 52 years of age and 25 years of service. 52 years old and 25 years of service would be an increase of $20,246 from what has already been budgeted. Again, only 1.7 increase in total approved payroll. An additional funding covered from the clerk and sheriff's fee will cover that. 50 years old and 20 years of service would be an increase of $26,254.15 from what has already been budgeted. That would be an increase of 2.2 in total approved payroll. Additional funding should be covered from the history of the clerk and sheriff fees. 50/52 years old and 25 years of service money needed. Budgeted already of $336,667 is a minimum for the IC that they do. With or without the change, that's the amount of money that has to be budgeted. We can't change that from their recommendation. And I attached a sheet, that is the lowest recommended, and then we make up with our sheriff's fees, and it would be that paper right there. The summary of cost. This is the $336,667 is, whether this passes or not, that still has to be the same amount budgeted. So both 25 years of service, so 50 years old would be the 26,000 plus, and 52 would be 20,000. The history of the sheriff and clerk fees since the inception, 2000, midway through 2012. Our lowest year was the first year, it was a half a year. No, the first 3 years were only partial. So since then, we've averaged $26,126.42 per year that go into that. With the highest year, we had over $41,193.70 go in. And this year so far, we're at $22,129.08. And those fees that we get from the clerk come from the papers we serve from the courts. Some of them, it gets a little, without getting too muddy, some of them we get a $28 service fee for serving pre-conviction, and then after it's done, we get another $28. So sometimes we get up to $56 on one case. If history goes as it has, with the way the economy is and foreclosures on homes right now and repos, I look for the paper service process next year to go up quite a bit. Additional issues. I'll just skip down to number 2 there, where pension is strong. Pension is funded to accomplish this request. Stan Brown with One America, the 2 studies, both impact, they say, can be studied. It can be funded either way. And remember, Stan Brown's company does 91 of the 92 sheriff's pension plans in the state of Indiana. So I feel they really know what they're doing when they have that kind of clientele. We do several checks yearly on the monies in the pension plan. Checks and balances are made on the pension plan yearly by 3 entities. One America, the trustee of the funds, which is Lake City Bank right now, the sheriff, and the merit board. As we spoke in other meetings, as requested in an early meeting, have council be invited to the review of the funds, which is done once a year with Lake City. The fund can fund it, but if for some reason it really tanks, changes can be made, and One America let us know that we're going in the wrong direction. So the special early time additional facts I sent you, I want to make this one clear. This doesn't change the age to 52. Let's say somebody comes in, gets their 25 years and leaves. and they're 49, let's say they got hired real young, 21, they're 46. If they choose to go do another career, their retirement does not start until they're 55. For special early retirement, you have to qualify for both 25 years of service and turning 52 while you're at the department. So this doesn't change. Like I said, if you hit 25 at 50, you can't walk away and start drawing at 52. You would draw at 55, then under the other way. So you have to, again, qualify for both the service and the age requirement. I checked around because I forget what meeting it was, Joan, you asked what other counties were doing with elected officials. So I checked around on pension plans around us. Kosciuszko County changed it. They're 52 and 25 years of service in our neighborhood. Steuben's 52 and 25. DeKalb's 52 and 20 years of service. Adams is 52 and 20 years of service. We talked with Sheriff Weber. He has no plans in Noble County of doing it. He's working on bringing their pay up right now. Allen County, I didn't check with because Allen County's base salary is in a different ballpark than ours is.
Understandable.
And then special early provisions around us. Sheriff Newton's planning on a 2023 request. Wells County's looking at it next year, just starting to look at it. And Wabash is having One America look into it. So I don't know when that would be. We have 19 current merit deputies. Of those 19, only 7 are invested with 10 years or more service. At the beginning of the year, we had 7 deputies with less than 5 years of service. Another 4 with between 5 and 9 years of service. After the first of the year, when Jason hires a new deputy, years of service will go down again. Unknown if the age will or not, but I would assume it would. But this shows we will continue to have future money entering the pension. Like I said, the pension is healthy. After the 2 studies, they said this won't have an impact on our pension. Only 2 deputies can benefit from special early retirement through December 31st, 2026. The others might be eligible at 7 years up to 23 years away. And the 2 deputies that would be eligible would be Jason and I. With me next year, and then with his position, probably not at least before. So the pension continues to bring in more than it pays out yearly. A special early retirement provision with age 52 is popular because it ties in with the 77 Police and Fire Fund, a plan under the umbrella of Indiana Public Retirement Service for municipal cities and towns, police and fire. For competitive benefit purpose, it's the primary reason an age 52 with differing service requirements popular feature. That came from Stan Brown. It says this week, but when I wrote it, it was last week when I updated it. Then the attachment just showed the history of the paper service and what the sheriff puts in, which I guess I didn't explain that. The sheriff with the smaller numbers, a lot of that money is tax warrant that we collect, but it goes over to the clerk and gets put in. And then this was just, again, the amount that needed budgeted under the IC that they sent the study. Todd, you want to start with anything about being there after?
I was would have to stay on the road. I would do all the time. Take the burnout factor. Much quicker.
Now, Tony's from a different aspect because Tony is eligible right now with the old plan. So Tony came because he's one of the older deputies, but this is one of the things that would not benefit Tony because he came from another police department at an older age. But Tony is eligible to walk away at any time. He's Okay.
October 1st, I could retire. I don't plan on it. But with this retirement plan, we all know what this younger generation is. We just, job. We have to do something to keep our employees at the county. Okay? Lord's seen it. They're losing guys left and right to Fort Wayne City. They're making more money, they have better retirement. Luckily, we're not losing any employees yet. So if we don't do the 50 and 20, 50 years of age, 20 years of service, our younger guys are gonna say, see ya, go on somewhere. Right, they can buy, they can take whatever they have, if they have 3 years here at the sheriff's department, they can take that 3 years and buy it into Fort Wayne City or Allen County that have a better plan. And where did we at? We're at square one. And as you just heard Mark say, we can't hire jailers, we can't hire dispatchers. Nobody wants to be a cop. We have to give a package out here that is gonna keep, retain, and get more newer employees to come to the Whitley County Sheriff's Department. I've been there almost 27 years, okay? I feel like I've been there 5 because I do enjoy my job. I love it. You know, I eat and sleep Whitley County Sheriff's Department. Probably say that. But this young generation is gonna leave. They are gonna leave and go somewhere else.
There's a lot of lateral transfers right now down south. A lot of them, they're starting upwards. I mean, they're actually taking the age of service. You're talking about $78,000 for the down there. We don't want that, especially when you invest time in somebody training somebody for, right now, our newest employee, he's not on his own yet. He's gonna be here, I think, 10 months now. We're at 10, 11 months. He's just getting to the point right now where he's gonna start counting on the schedule. And that means that he's received his FPO time. He's got his reviews. He's able to work that. He's reached that level. Then he's got to go to the academy, take his pre-test in December, and then off January 3rd, I think, to the academy. So by the time you add all this stuff up, you invest a lot of time, a lot of money in training someone. And the last thing we want to do is start that process over when we don't need to. If we give these people that we hire something to look for, something that they're not going to get burned out, they don't have to work till they're 60 years old or 65 years old and earn that pension, even if they get hired later. Let's give them something to look forward to, invest into those people, because we've already invested in training them, getting them here, showing them how we do things in Whitley County. You have to leave them in 2.5 to 3 years because they're going to make $10,000 or $15,000 more from somewhere else. We don't want that. We want them committed here. We want them to care about the job and community they're serving. That's what we're looking for. We don't want a body to fill it. We want somebody that's going to be here and work in this community. We just don't want one body.
You go out here on the internet and look, Texas especially, they're giving $6,000 to $7,000 incentives just to come and apply. And if you get hired, you get $6,000 or $7,000. You get unlimited freaking benefits, because nobody wants to be a cop anymore. And I know Whitley County's small, we're not Texas, we're not Fort Wayne, but, guys who go to Fort Wayne City making $70,000 a year the first year. Okay. We're at what, 57, 58? So why not drive 20 miles from the $15,000?
Then we're getting ready to lose a good confinement officer that I was hoping was going to be one that would apply for the next job, but he's in the final process at Fort Wayne. I mean, Fort Wayne City's starting to pull more because they're giving incentives for everything, education, shift differentials.
Well, how many of you guys lost before? 3, 4. And what do you do now? You start all over. Process. You have to have.
We've lost more to the county than we have to.
Well, you were supposed to say
Not that.
But it doesn't matter, it's still lost. You're still replacing coming from ground zero. That's the purpose. And then, it's not just the factor of now you have to invest in somebody else, now you're shorthanded. Now your staff now is having to build up back shift because something.
Thank you. So in closing, I guess I'd like to say the job's not what it was years ago. As we get older, I see more of my friends get more and more calloused. I mean, you drive the county with your family and be like, oh God, yeah, there's a person hanging in that house. So that guy shot himself in that house. That stuff weighs on you and we don't talk about it. That we can take our own blame for not talking about it. But suicide's up in cops this year. We went on a stint there for a while, like 7 days in a row where somebody got lost. And probably in our lifetime, we'll see it in Whitley County. There'll be an officer lost again. So I guess just over the years, the weight of the badge gets you burnt out. And you're not the person you were, and you don't want to be that Rod retired on duty there. So I guess the request I'm asking for is for you guys to look at either the 50 and 25 years of service, which would be the $26,000 and something, which, as I wrote in that, should be covered. We haven't hit that benchmark every year with that sheriff's fee, so there might be a shortfall, I'm not gonna lie. But the 52 years old and 25 years of service, we've hit that money every year since the last 10 years average. So everything would be funded. And like I said, with or without this getting passed, no additional money is going to be needed for what was budgeted already.
And currently you're what, 55 and 25?
55 and 20.
This is what you have now in place.
Yes, which would still be in place. That's why this is just a special early retirement, because some people will not meet these requirements and they will have to do the 55 and 20 before they can draw. There's also, Tom, where somebody could come work for us for 10 years, be vested at their 20%, and they could leave. They would still draw at 55 and 2, just not as big of a percentage. So once you hit 10 years, you're vested for whatever your 5 highest years were at 20% that you can draw at 55 years. Anything before that, you just get your contributions back with interest.
Any other questions for Mark while he's here? Chad, the commissioners got any?
The commissioners haven't discussed yet, so we don't have a unified voice on that until we address it in a meeting. I talked to Sheriff Gatton earlier this week, or maybe last week, and I had just said that at this point, like, I have very, very limited knowledge, like no knowledge of it. So it was good to sit through this and hear and learn a little bit more, but I can't speak on behalf of the commissioners to say how we feel about it.
So what's your pleasure? You want to?
Being a recipient of early retirement, I make a motion that we approve the 50 years and 25 years of service.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a second? There being none, it dies. Okay.
One question about that. Almost 8 years to the day, Mark Hodges walked in here after 8 years of service as sheriff. And you guys granted him a pension after serving 8 years. We are talking about people now that are gonna serve 25 years for the county. We can't do that.
Tony, I appreciate your thought, and you and I have had some discussion on that, but you know that this board or this commission, this council, we weren't there, we didn't make that decision.
Two of them were. Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Barrett, both of them.
That's certainly not a majority.
It is not. But but they didn't vote against it either.
I know you have a passion for it. We're not denying that passion. It's just that wasn't our decision.
I'm just saying the guys put in 25 years.
I thought Marcus told me it was 55 years old and 20 years of service.
Unless you're an outside person that comes in for sheriff, and then after 8 years, you get a pension.
Yeah, I understand that, but what you have now for these gentlemen sitting right here, for everybody, it's 55 years of age and 20 years of service.
That is, yes.
That's what you have now.
So if a guy gets hired at 25 years old, he's gonna work here 40 years. I'm sorry, 30 years to draw his pension. Because he's gonna be 55 years old.
That's his choice then. I mean, he's only got to work 10 to get a partial, but you just got to work. So you could work 20 years and quit and then draw your pension because go somewhere else.
And a deduction of
You can't draw until you get 55 years old.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But that's by your choice if you want to put your years of service in, and I thank you for that. But what you could do, what a new employee could do is walk in here right now and put 20 years in and turn 55 and get his full pension. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you're sheriff, you'd walk in here and get.
I understand that part. Yep.
Okay, well, we thank you. We got to move on. We need to approve the 2023 BZA Board Appointment.
Before we go on to the salary ordinance, if I could have some leeway here. Is that what you're on?
No,
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then never mind. I wanted to introduce something before that.
this, please see it.
Yeah, this is if you guys make the recommendation, and then this was Nathan's memo to council.
Okay, we have are these the ones that are applying for? Or
This one is saving. This one is for Sarah Lopez.
Okay. But are they against?
I don't know that. I just forwarded on, and I don't think Nathan's here to speak on it. I know it doesn't have to be today, so if you want to speak to him.
Well, I don't know if it's just for one or.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You know, Chad?
Yeah, there's one member who will not return next year, and I don't recall their name, but Sarah Lopez will stay. And there's another member.
Kelly Shees.
Well, Kelly Shees, as you recall, back maybe in 2018 or 19, we appointed Kelly Shees as an alternate to Sarah Lopez. And so she's not a voting member right now unless Sarah Lopez is not present. But I believe that Kelly Shees is attending nearly every meeting currently.
But Sarah's the one that's leaving.
Sarah is not leaving. Sarah's.
That's what my paper said.
I thought that's,
Yeah,
I thought you
paper
said
said
Sarah was leaving.
leaving.
I think we need to.
Do you know who is leaving then?
Well, it sounds like a lot of you say that Sarah's leaving. I was unaware of that. I thought that.
I
Nathan
thought
told
that
me
was the
someone else.
email. that
Yeah, I read it too.
I understood it
So-
that way, I thought.
Let's table it until-
Okay.
and have Nathan come down and explain it to us a little bit.
It said Sarah was gonna leave, and since Kelly came to every meeting under her, it made sense for her to move up.
Okay, we have.
Yeah, that's the way I understood it too.
I thought I was given a different name, but it could be too that maybe the name I was given was a commissioner appointment, not a council appointment. So it could be that there's multiple positions.
2023, sorry, ordinance approval.
Could I jump in before
Sure.
that? Because I don't know if the issue that I've had to bring up would affect the salary ordinance or not. But I've been contacted by 3 different county employees. One of them who is here today would like to speak on our longevity pay. And a reason that I think that it should be done differently. So Tony, if you want to come up right now, please, and speak on that. Again, I brought up in the past that I think that it's appropriate that we have our longevity paid on their anniversary date. The city does it and seems to do fine with it. And I've had, like I said, several employees, and Tony's going to speak on why that makes a difference to the employee on when that's paid.
My name's Tony Helfrich. I'm with the Willie County Sheriff's Department. Our longevity is getting moved to January, which will be paid in the 2023 pay schedule, correct? Okay. I've been here almost 27 years at $50 a year, so it's what, $2,300 or $1,300, correct? Roughly. That will not show on my 2022 W-2, that extra $1,300. My retirement is based on my best 5 years of work. So let's say this year I make $60,000. That's what's going to show on my W-2, when it should be $61,300. Okay, by moving the longevity to the 2023 pay, I lose $1,300 towards my retirement because I can leave at any time from now until I decide, because I have my years of service and I'm at the age. So next year, if I decide to retire, I'm going to be $1,300 short because it wasn't put on this pay schedule. People that have got hired in January, like January 1st through whatever time that you guys are doing it, they're actually going to be a year behind on their longevity. You know, because they should have been paid on their anniversary date in January of last year. Well, now they're not getting it until January 2023, which they should be getting it. They're behind a year. And I'm like, Thor, I don't know why we don't get paid on our anniversary date. I've seen it both ways working here. As long as I have, I've seen it on anniversary dates. I've seen it change to once a, in November, and now we're changing it to January under a whole different pay schedule. Well, that's costing me money in the long run. I don't like losing money. Okay. Nobody likes losing money, especially with interest rates at 7% for a new house, inflation and everything else. So I would like to see you reconsider to either going to our anniversary dates or keeping it in November like it has been for 10 years, 12 years, whatever. Like I said, it's costing me money if you guys change this.
Refresh my memory why we changed that, Tiffany?
It changed, that way we didn't have to make the change in the system twice a year. It would only be one time a year for overtime rates and things like that. And unfortunately, it can't be changed for this year because it's already been voted on. We've already let PERF know. So for 2022, we cannot pay it out in November. There's no way to change that. It's already been sent to PERF. Everything is.
I don't work for PERF, but I mean, but I don't know. I don't know what to say. But like I said, if I retire next year, I lose $1,300 because it's not on my 2022 statement. And I don't know why it can't be on anniversary dates. Because I got hired in March, so I got to wait all the way till November to get my return on my money.
I don't know. There's other things that have been raised to us in payroll. People are wondering why we don't just pay it as we earn it. So I've had people come with your point. I've had people come with, why don't we just get it when we earn it? So per pay. People want it per pay. There's lots of other ways we can do it as well.
I keep hearing about an overtime issue. I don't know how that works because you get $50 a year for every year you're here. Write me a check for $1,300 and $10.99 me at the end of the year.
It can't be done that way per State Board of Accounts.
Okay. But like I said, the city gets paid on their anniversary dates. We did for years back before there was computers. We had an issue with them. And then all of a sudden we're changing it to an entire different year and pay scale. That's my $1,300. Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Tony.
I hope you change it.
So moving forward next year, I would encourage council to look at that again and let's move it let's have a discussion about moving it to anniversary date. That longevity pay is meant to be a bonus to entice people to stay. When they get to their anniversary date, they should be rewarded for that. If someone leaves 2 days before their anniversary date, they're not getting their longevity pay when they leave because they weren't here through that anniversary date. We're not retroactively giving them a prorated amount. So that should be paid when they reach their anniversary date. I know that would be a difference in bookkeeping, but I mean, we're not using pencils and paper here. It's a computer. It should be easy enough to program something where we can figure that out. So that's all I wanted to bring up before we approve the salary ordinance. Thank you for that time.
Everybody had a chance to look at the ordinance. The ordinance number would be 2022-21.
Make a motion that we approve 2022-21 as presented to us. But before I would finish that motion, I would ask, has everything that is in this document been things that we have approved on, and has anything been changed on this document outside of any work that the council has done or advised you to put into this?
I will second it, and I appreciate that statement.
Yes.
I really do. I'm thankful that you asked that.
Do we have a first and a second? Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. It passed. Okay, while they're doing that, commissioners report.
Yeah, so for today's commissioner report, I've asked Tony from Elevatus and Kent from Wygand to join us just for a quick update from them on what's been happening. I know that we have a presentation, right? Yeah.
Good morning, council.
Morning.
Morning.
I thought it would be a good time. We've reached a milestone, so I'd like to give you an update on the jail project. With me, as Chad had introduced, is Emma Open with Elevatus. She's helped me with this project, and what I mean by that is she's done all the work and she's made us. Thanks, Emma. And Kent Gilliam with Wygand Construction, the county's selected CM for the project. Wygand's been an integral part of the design team because they've attended these design meetings as well. But let's get started. This is information only. There is no motion, or I'm not asking for anything. I just want to bring you up to speed. So if you go to the next slide there, this is the final approved floor plan. The area on the furthest bottom on the page is all administration. The area to the left is that it kind of looks like the spokes on a wheel. That's the housing area. Moving to the right in sort of that darker teal color, that's what we call inmate services. So commissary, kitchen, and laundry. The area the lighter color then to its right is the intake area. And moving further to the right, the top right green is the JCAP program. JCAP is a acronym that stands for Jail Chemical Addiction Program. So these, it's a specialized program that the space is designed for to help inmates that really want to improve their lives. The county is going to give them the tools to do that. And then the space to below that is a on-premise court. The size of the building is just about 58,000 square feet. We're at 234 beds. If we go to the next slide, this is what she looks like. If you recall, this is a prototype design approach that we've offered the county to save some time and some fee. So this is very much like the Adams County, the Fulton County, and Henry County designs, but with some differences. The addition of the courthouse has sort of pulled out that glass box, that entrance statement in the front. And it's came together with kind of a handsome mix of gray tones. It really fit the site and the surrounding buildings around it. Okay. Next slide, I think Kent's going to talk about schedule, which that's going to be really hard to read.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kent Gilliam. I'm the Senior Project Manager with Whiting. I'm the Construction Manager on the Woodley County Jail project. And I'm just one of several faces at Whiting working on this project. So thank you for allowing me to be part of the team. Since we were brought on board in the summer, we've attended about 12 different meetings with Elevatus and the commissioners and the sheriff's group. Many of those meetings have been design meetings and just work going on in the pre-construction phase. While Elevatus is doing design and figuring out layouts and building codes and those sorts of things, we're helping with schedules. We're looking at soft costs to make sure the project has everything accounted for from a fixture furniture, just to try to develop those lists to make sure what's on the drawings, what's not on the drawings, what are we bringing with us, what is going to be bought new, just who's responsible for what, really trying to help identify that. We've helped with cash flow projections. We've sat in meetings with Baker Tilly, so about 12 meetings total as we go through that process. And then while they're working on drawings and the technical specifications, we're working on the front end project manual that has a lot of contract requirements. So we've taken this project, built just recently with Elevatus, a facility very similar to this down in Henry County. This has some amenities that project did not have, but looking at how that project was set up in bid packages, and we always go back and look at lessons learned, and we work together on questions that came up through the process. But this project has been separated into, I think, 19 different bid packages, and that's where we scope that out as far as who's doing what. So we prepare that document and the bid form that's required, insurance requirements, all that gets put together with the technical specifications, and then that gets put out for bid. So the project is out for bid right now. We did have a pre-bid meeting on site last week. So questions are starting to roll in. So right now, I think our projected bid opening is November 30th. And the way we've got our schedule set up, if we need to push that a few days, we will, just depending on questions as they come in towards the end. We want to make sure we give appropriate time for questions to get answered, and that we keep the participation from the bidders high. We want to make sure that if there's a late addendum that gets issued, that they've got ample time to turn in a good bid. So, but right now the plan would be end of November bids. And then once those are received, we'll do scope scrubs, and we'll come back mid-December, make a recommendation to the commissioners on all those bid packages. And in the meetings that we've been involved with Baker Tilly, I think they're looking at trying to get around the holiday schedule, and they're looking to sell bonds mid-January with projected closing at end of January. So exciting time right now. As you're aware, the construction market is busy, so we're trying to make those phone calls right now, keep the interest high. I think this project is appealing to a lot of folks. It's got some size to it. We feel like this is out to bid kind of at a sweet spot right now. People are looking for backlog for next year, so this is, I think, at a good time. A lot of school projects kind of target that time frame too, maybe December time frame. So we feel like we're right where we need to be from the bidding standpoint. So all goes well. We're looking to break ground in the spring of 23, and then the project will be turned over in the summer of 24.
Do you see a problem as far as materials as we go forward here? I know there's several jobs out there that's having trouble getting concrete and that.
Yes, so we're keeping our pulse on that, and it seems like over the last year and a half,
those materials have kind of moved around. It seems like bar joists and deck were the first things. If you just have really long lead times, those have kind of settled down now. Roofing materials for a while was on that list. Right now, switchgear, transformers have long lead times. There are allocations going on right now on concrete. What we're seeing is most of the A players in the market that pay their bills and buy a lot of concrete are still getting service. The folks that maybe have some outstanding bills or the smaller projects are the ones that are kind of falling off. But yeah, it's kind of a changing story, it seems like, over the last couple of months. But yeah, that's definitely something that we're keeping a pulse on. Our plan would be, once those bids are received, and based on just the speed of the bonds, we've talked about potentially being able to do some letters of intent for a few folks that would have some extreme long lead times, just to help that submittal process to start. It seems like a lot of the game right now in some of the real long lead items are just getting a spot in line, even though, you know, there's submittals that have to be done and approvals, and you don't really need it till over here. It's just a matter of getting in line on a few things. So we're keeping an eye on that for sure.
Thank you. Council have any other questions?
No, I appreciate the update.
Thank you for the update. Appreciate that very much.
You guys have been through this many times, and Tony, you've been through this a lot. At this point, is there anything that you're projecting where we need to make sure that council's in the fold? And is there anything going on right now? I know that it could be a better question for Baker Tilly and Ice Miller, but what are you seeing that we might be missing?
I don't think you're really missing anything right now. Touched on it. The work with aligning the solar bond is really what the whole team is doing. Just make sure things on that.
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the previous minutes to be approved.
Make a motion to approve the previous minutes, and previous meetings minutes as presented.
Second.
First and second. All them in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Will pass. Okay. At this time, is there anybody else have anything you know? Katie?
Sorry to keep coming up here. Again, Katie with the Clinton County Highway Department for Director position. I wanted to bring to your attention that I've been in communication about the Lincoln Way potential project that we were looking at maybe submitting for a federal aid grant for. I did send you the report that we had for the results of the touring. Would be more than happy to entertain any questions either here or after, or any other time really to answer or clarify some of the details in that report. But I did talk to the engineering consulting company that we did contract USI to do our assessment. And they have asked that if there's any way possible to allow them a little bit more time to be able to really concretely put together that engineering assessment for the project, to be able to present to the council, to be able to then possibly request a financial match or a financial commitment rather for the local match for that project. I, of course, did not feel comfortable asking for any such commitment at this time because I have no idea what those numbers are. They are almost finished with the reports, and I should have that in hand hopefully this week, next week at the latest, which I hope to distribute to you all and then entertain any discussion or questions about. But what I wanted to ask is if the council would be willing to grant a special meeting following the next commissioner meeting, I believe it's on the 21st, in order to formally present that report to you, have discussion, and then possibly present a financial commitment if we are moving forward with that project.
Katie, I would question, I think you need to go through the commissioners first.
Sure.
And let the commissioners bring it to council.
Right.
We have kind of a chain of commands here, so we don't want to step on Chad's toes any, so.
I totally agree with you and understand, but in Katie's defense, I asked her to inform council of this because I feel that we need to know if council will give us any kind of financial commitment or back or support this. Otherwise, if we apply for this grant, we're wasting our time and council does not intend to come alongside us on it.
What's the grant deadline?
And that's actually why I'm requesting a special meeting, is because the grant deadline is at the end of the month. So I'm hoping to meet with USI. Actually, Beth and I have a meeting scheduled on the 23rd to hopefully be able to complete that application to submit it. And again, this would be depending, I asked to be on the agenda for the commissioner meeting on the 21st to talk about the application, or to talk about the assessment after it's completed. And then obviously pending that decision to move forward to the council if they do grant a special meeting following the commission meeting. So I do still plan to go through that chain of command, but unfortunately with not having an additional council meeting, there's not another way for me to request a financial commitment letter from the fiscal body before the deadline of that grant.
And you don't have a dollar amount yet.
I do.
That's why we have to have a special, okay.
Can ARPA funds be used for that?
Possibly. I mean, it would be an appropriate use of our funds, but it would have to be like an amendment to our ARPA plan, right? And then we'd have to come back to council and ask for an allocation.
And we are hopeful that the majority of the funding can be reserved and utilized from the highway department, since it is a highway project. But again, not knowing what the total funding or the total expenditures of that project are anticipated to be, I can't say with surety that will be 100% possible. But all of that, again, will come to light whenever I've received the engineering assessment from USI.
So are we comfortable with the meeting after the commissioners in on the 21st? Yes. And that's enough time to advertise or whatever you have to do? That work for everybody?
I think you make it work.
I do know that I did see that in Kosciuszko County from the Whitley line and 213, they've made some major improvements here in the past couple months. And I assume that the work they're doing is aligned with the work that we will do.
I believe that USI plans to present, I think, 3 different options with the coring results that we had done that kind of co-align with what the most sound decision is going to be for repair. I know what Kosciuszko's plan was. They did not do any coring, and they did not really take into consideration what's beneath. But they did make some hopeful, they made informed decisions on their improvements with some of their procedures.
Sure.
Okay, well, as soon as you know something, let us know, and we'll get council together.
And I will make sure to get that engineering assessment out to all of you when I receive it. And I just wanted to thank you for granting me the special meeting following the commission meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
It's worth noting that commissioner meeting is at 1:30? 1 o'clock, and so we're not talking about a 10 o'clock meeting, we're talking about a 3 o'clock meeting.
Okay, Councilman Barrett?
Just everybody remember that Veterans Day is Friday on it. Thank a veteran.
Councilwoman Jones?
Nope. Thank you, John. I have nothing.
Thank you, John.
Councilman
There
Fuller?
are others here also.
All the best.
You have anything, Councilman Fuller?
No, just my thank you for John. I have nothing else.
There being none?
Real fast, sorry. I just wanted to, first of all, my name's Nick Brewer, council-elect starting in the next session. But I wanted to encourage you guys to vote in favor of the broadband initiative. Personally, I believe it's the and I encourage and support the
Okay. Okay.
I was planning to be here at 8 o'clock this morning. I was delayed, unfortunately. I had to use the virtual option. and I want to convey my extreme disappointment and frustration that I had to log in and provide my full name, email, all things. That was the first barrier. The second barrier was that I had to download an app to even get to it. It took 15 minutes to download that app. And I finally got logged into the meeting 30 seconds before I walked into work. That is horrible as far as being able to encourage the public to participate in these meetings, whether in person or virtually. So I don't know who's in charge of that system, but it needs a major overhaul. This is something that is easily accessible at one click to the full public in real time. This needs to be on YouTube Live. Period. We post it later, there's no reason it can't be just posted on YouTube Live right now. That's just one solution I think. But the current state is unacceptable. As a member of the public who wants to stay informed, who wants to ask questions from an informed state, this is ridiculous.
Okay, go ahead.
The other thing about the search situation, I wanted to make sure that you all understand there was an incorrect number provided earlier. The overall amount of the households, I believe somebody said 1,300, and I have evidence from prior meetings. You can go back and look at it in a minute. It's actually 13,000. It's closer to 70% of the county households. Because the ones not covered would be the ones that are already covered through another provider. So I want to make that clear on record. If it's not 1,300, it's over 13,000 that would benefit if all of these go through, or if a good portion of them go through. That's a big deal, and it's worth waiting for. I, for one, understand that this is going to take years to get through. I know that was a comment from earlier, and I'm very disappointed in how long this is taking to get through. I honor and I appreciate the commitment to accountability. I really do. I think that's very important. However, I feel like you all need to be held accountable as well for moving this along. And if this is not the right solution, you still need to be accountable for finding the right solution, because we are going without internet right now. And it's inexcusable.
Thank you. We're adjourned.